Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of the Worst to Best series featuring the Prog Connection, featuring all three of us this time. We have Dad and John and myself. Today, we are going to be talking about Canadian progressive rock legends Rush, the iconic trio formed in Toronto, and they've been a very huge staple of Canadian rock here, and they have a billion records sold. They're a very popular band here in Canada. They've sold very well. Lots of big hits that a lot of people will recognize, like Tom Sawyer, Closer to the Heart, as well as Spirit of the Radio. With this list, it's going to be a little bit different because their discography is nearly 20 albums long. It's a very, very large discography. We're going to be doing a very long list, so let's actually see how well we start. And everyone's number 19, I think, is actually different. So let's start with Dad's.
My number 19 is the debut album. When I first heard this album in 1978 or 1979 or whatever, when I first heard about Rush, I thought it was pretty good, but back then I was listening to a lot of Led Zeppelin and other things that were slightly more mainstream, and this seemed like the Canadian version of Led Zeppelin. But now that listen back to it now, it sounds too much like old Led Zeppelin. It's not really very uniquely Rush at all. So I think that this album is it's okay for what it is, but it's not a great Rush album. It's more of like the Canadian version of Led Zeppelin. It's a Led Zeppelin copy. Their influences are too apparent. They don't really have anything unique that's uniquely Rush on this album. So I think it's the weakest of all their albums. But again, it's just the first album, and obviously they did get a lot stronger as they went along.
Mm-hmm.
But still, this is the one that I would. I mean, I wouldn't be likely to listen to this album again.
Mm-hmm. I
If I
understand.
heard if some song came on, I wouldn't mind to hear it,
Mm-hmm.
but I wouldn't choose to listen to this album very much, and it doesn't really define Rush to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay, but again, it just sounds like they're trying to copy Led Zeppelin too much. So this is definitely their weakest album.
All right. John, you're number 19.
My number 19. Most people will probably agree with this. Some people got the debut. Mine's Power Window. They do not like this album at all. Although the album is kind of similar to another 80s album that Rush does. I feel that this one, the lyrics are not as good. It's got a lot of I don't know. For me, it's the weakest one out of their whole catalog. It doesn't click with me. Other than it was kind of hard to put my weakest ones all in the last five because kind of like or the last 4 to 5 because they're all very similar. But to me, I don't like the synth sound on this one that much. I don't know. It doesn't feel like an album. It's like a 2-star album, maybe 1.5 stars by me. I mean, it's okay, but it's Power Windows. Never been a fan. I mean, I can like the other songs that are on my 18, 17, and all those positions list a lot more than Power Windows. I made like 1 or 2 songs on so 19 Power Windows.
Okay. My 19 is a 90s album, and I'm going to go with Counterparts. I I actually do think that, generally speaking, this album does have a lot of some solid hard rock sound that they were able to accomplish. You can hear touches of like Test for Echo and Vapor Trails on this album. I do think that they did that sound better on Test for Echoes and Vapor Trails. My big problems are I don't love Animate. Not my favorite track that they've ever recorded. I find it very just for me, it's a little bit low on the songwriting tier from me. I do like the production of this album. It's wide, big, bombastic, huge, very well done. I just don't love the songwriting myself. So let's move on to number 18, Dead.
For me, 18 is going to be Fly By Night for the exact same reason that 19 was the debut. They still sound like a Led Zeppelin copy. Yes, there is some more original songs, like even the title track, Fly By Night, is a very good track.
Yep. By Torn the Snow
But
Dog.
Yeah, that's really good, but a lot of the rest of it still sounds a little bit too much like a Led Zeppelin copy. Like they weren't bold enough to just do their own thing, which they kind of did with Corrosive Steel. They got on to just being bold and saying, we're just going to do our own thing, our own thing. But on Fly By Night, they were still trying to stick with basically the formula of the first album, for which I believe they had some success in America, right?
Yeah, I think so.
There'd been some radio stations that actually played them, and probably they didn't want to lose that little foothold that they had into the American market.
Right.
So they said, I don't know if it was conscious or not. It might have been, subconscious that they were just, well, we had a little bit of success. Let's do some more of that. That's a human tendency to just do more of the same because you
Right.
did have a little bit of success.
Mm-hmm.
And, so
Yeah.
yeah, 18 Fly By Night for me.
John, you're number 18.
This is gonna sound a very odd choice and a little bit contradictory, but I have my reasons. The last album that Rush did before Neil Peart passed away, the Clockwork. This album is a concept album. I'm not really a big fan of the sound. I've also been told the original vision that what Neil wanted to do is this album was supposed to be a stage production, kind of like made into like a film that was supposed to be in the backdrop.
Mm.
And I feel that this out is very at the bottom because one is a concept album. You can't really follow it. And I honestly feel that the envisionment of what this album that Neil wanted to do in his vision and dream, this would have been better probably done the way he wanted it to be done live. It'd probably be higher. But to me, it's too modern. I don't like the tone. I wish it's a little too heavy for me. But when I get to my second pick, you're going to be going, okay, if this is heavy to you, why is that at the top? There's a reason why.
Okay.
But it was very hard to choose between this or the debut for 18th. But I just never clicked with this album. I feel like it's better. It would be better if it was done the way it was intended, with the live production and the video backdrop that Neil wanted to be done. It's the way it's executed is why it's at the bottom of the list.
My number 18 is the debut, released in 74. I do agree with Dad's assessment. I do think that this is very obviously them trying to be a Zeppelin cover. And I mean, you can so hear that with Geddy Lee's vocals. He's definitely trying to do the Robert Plant type vocals, which all credit to Geddy Lee, but he could do it. He actually did sound kind of good doing the Robert Plant kind of sound. He did well. He could do it. But it doesn't fit the Rush sound very well in my mind, even though I think Geddy could actually do it. I don't think the sound matched the essence of what they needed to be to, gain popularity and get their own style. This is very derivative, and it's very it's well produced for what it is, and John Rutsey's got some very decent drumming on this album. It's just, I think that they definitely did do a lot better. As much as I could have put this at the bottom, I think that for what it is, the production and the song quality here is decent. Just not what I'm going to pick up first. So let's move on to number 17. Dad.
Number 17, I have Counterparts. It's really simple. I think that it doesn't take much Googling around to find that there was a point in the late 80s, early 90s where I guess Alex Lifeson was not too happy about the amount of keyboards, synths that there were. And as a keyboard player, I can tell you that I actually think that moving to the synth sound was a really good idea and really enhanced the Rush sound. And this album, they seem to have thrown that away. And so it ends up sounding like too much of trying to, move towards being whatever was hip in the middle 90s, which was a lot of returning to basics and more of a guitar oriented sound, which, I mean, prog without keyboards? That's a little stretch too far, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, I
John,
no, that really, as you said, Zoli, the songwriting is not that great on this album. So even if they'd put keyboards in, it probably still would have not been a great album. It's just that they just decided so much that they wanted to make it obvious that they were throwing away the synths and we're just going to be a guitar type band. And so it just, I think it doesn't work. And it's a shame that they decided to do that because, it's just they started bringing in the synths even on Farewell to Kings, but they really brought in bigger synths and sort of, they really went in that direction on Moving Pictures, and it was a good direction. And that's the direction of Rush that I like. So this album, for the abandonment of keyboards and the returning to just a guitar oriented direction, I think was enough to sink this album. It was a bad idea.
John, you're number 17.
17 would be the debut.
Okay.
It's not that good. It doesn't have Neil Peart. Neil Peart didn't join until, I believe, Fly
The
by
next
Night.
album, yeah. Fly by Night, yeah.
Not a fan of this. It's not a bad debut, but at the same time, Neil Peart's not on this album, and
Yeah.
I believe even if he was on this album, it'd still be kind of low because, my honest opinion, the band's first two albums, they wear their influences on their sleeves and they got to get a hold of each other. By the third or the fourth album is usually when a band really takes off. Not every band's like that, but in common tradition, you had first couple albums. They weren't like blockbusters either. It took them about 3 to 4 albums. Genesis,
I mean,
although
it took them up
contrary to
until
opinion,
Trespass, really, and Nursery Crime until they finally hit their stride.
Yeah, so this is where it is. It's 17 debut.
So, John, what
Yes.
what do you think? Even if Neil Peart had been there, what could have he really done with these songs more than John Rutsey? I mean, there's not really room for some bombastic Neil Peart type drumming.
Yeah.
He would have had to do the same thing, right? He would have had to stay basic.
Yeah,
Just
probably.
do the John Bonham thing, right?
Probably.
Yeah, because Neil didn't really start writing lyrics, if I'm not mistaken, until like the third album, and they kind of incorporated the sound of Neil into the band.
Yeah.
So
I thought that, and I'll bring this up with my 17th pick, which is Fly By Night. I do think that they did that exactly. They brought in Neil, and it was exactly kind of like the continuation of the debut. It had songs that you would find very readily on the debut, but it also had songs like Fly By Night, and it also had songs like Bytor and the Snow Dog, which, let's be honest, Bytor and the Snow Dog is very, very, like, it points heavily into the direction of where Rush is going. Extraordinarily heavy. You can hear
that's what I'm curious about also. It's the first two albums, even though Neil joined on Fly By Night.
If he did join on the debut, would it have ended up being more like Fly By Night?
Yeah, because I'm beginning to think that Fly By Night, those songs were actually written during the debut, and Neil just joined from the sounds of it, other than Bytor. But it's a discussion for another day.
Yeah,
because Caress of Steel is where you start hearing Neil really shine.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
To think that Neil had more input on that album, whereas Fly By Night seems like a leftovers of the debut, and Neil just joined the band.
Yeah.
Didn't really have to say.
Yeah, exactly.
I could be wrong. I don't know.
We could be very wrong about that, but I think we're going to move on to number 16 anyway. Dad, what's your number 16?
My number 16 is Clockwork Angels. I would say one caveat to this ranking is that
excuse me,
I'm not really extremely familiar with this album, so I listen to it whatever with you, Zolia. We listen to it 5, 6, 7 times over a period of a week or two. And but there's nothing that grabs you and says, "Come back and listen to this song." And so I found it to be, I didn't get into the concept, so I don't really understand what the concept is about.
Yeah.
Neither do I.
But yeah, whatever it was trying to accomplish, it didn't grab me in the way that the concepts on Hemispheres or 2112
Yeah.
were immediately grabbing when I was younger.
Right.
But yeah, and maybe that's why I'm saying that, because we only had a few weeks to listen to it. Maybe in 6 months, if I come back, this might be a little bit higher on the list. I'm not sure.
Mhm.
But for right now, I'm comfortable with it sitting at 16.
Yeah, I get you. John, you're number 16.
Mine's Fly By Night.
Mhm.
Not a big fan of this, although I do like Vitor and the Snow Dog and the song Fly By Night. If
Mhm.
I'm not mistaken, I don't know. It's one of the songs near the end of the album I like too, but I can't think of it offhand. I don't have any of the CDs near me. I don't really own a lot of Rush in my collection anymore.
Mhm.
I did, but those got lost in the booze.
Mhm.
Pretty sure we don't. Yeah, you'll fix all the album cover. Yeah,
Mhm.
but I honestly feel the reason, even though Neil Peart did join, basically the reason I just said a few minutes ago, is I feel like this album had a little bit of leftovers of the debut, and Neil just joined. He had to find his place. He, in my honest opinion, if he did write any of the lyrics to any of the songs or had any say on this album, it
Mhm.
probably been on By Ford Snow Dog,
Yep.
because it actually sounds more like something Neil would write lyrically. I
Yeah.
don't know if he wrote any of the lyrics on any other song on his
Mhm.
album. I don't know. I don't have no liner notes. I don't have a history on the
Yeah.
band. We didn't really go into the homework that deep.
Yeah.
Band's been around for like what 50 plus years or 40
Don't
now.
worry about that.
Yeah, so that'd be my 16, and from there it starts to really people's gonna turn their heads when I get to
Mhm.
the 15 going onward. So just
Yeah.
fair warning.
My number 16 is Test for Echo. I do enjoy a good bit of the songs found on here. The production is very well done, especially for what it is. Although now listen, we brought the man up on this podcast here when talking about Prog Archives. Um, there was something very interesting that Sean himself did talk about when it came down to Test for Echo and this era. I think that there is something valid, and Rush to me sounds like they've always had a little bit of an issue sticking with their identity. And this album and counterparts definitely solidify that a little bit, because what was coming out around 1993, 1995, 1996, the most popular Dream Theater and prog metal, which was amplifying the heaviness of rock and prog rock in general. So I think that because of bands getting popularity that were heavier, like Tool and Dream Theater and Fate's Warning, Rush felt like they maybe had to amp up their guitar tones and just put out some of the heaviest, grungiest stuff they could put out. And I think that this is one of the lesser works from that era, but I do think that generally speaking, some of the songs here are still good. Some decent songwriting. I don't think it's bad. I just don't think that for me, their heaviness on this album fits. And I think it's a little forced. Number 15, Dad.
I went with Vapor Trails.
Ooh.
I pretty much could give the same review you just gave for Test for Echo. I mean, again, it was just like trying to fit their sound into being that we're this guitar-oriented heavy band,
Mm-hmm.
and we can compete against the other people who are invading what was our space,
Mm-hmm.
and we can do what they do, and we can do it better. And so, again, yeah, it's not as much concentrating on just songwriting and doing the Rush thing, but Yeah, I think it's a bit of what you were saying. It's a little bit of a loss of identity, I think.
Yeah, which they
Y'all heard
always
the
had a problem with, in
remix?
my opinions.
No,
Go ahead, John.
the remix. There's two mixes. There's the
Yeah.
original mix I do not like at all. The remix is
Mm-hmm.
better, but I don't know. I don't know if y'all heard the remix version on YouTube or not. Not that it probably changed anyone's ranking,
It's
depending
yeah.
on the listener. It's
Uh,
depending on where it's going to rank. So
John, you're number 15.
people are going to crucify me for this. Moving Pictures, most popular
Oh.
album that everybody loves. It's the reason why this is so low is because I'm the type of person that my personality is going to like the underdog albums most of the time a little bit more. This could be a little bit higher, probably within maybe 10th to 12th place. But
Mm-hmm.
the thing that really aggravates me about this album, I'm pretty sure a lot of people will agree, is they radio commercialized this album with the three
To
singles
death.
Tom Sawyer, Red Bear, Canada, and then YYZ. YYZ being
Tom
the
Sawyer.
best song out of those three singles.
Tom Sawyer,
But to
man.
me,
Limelight. Yeah.
I don't. Limelight, Tom Sawyer, Red Bear, Canada, and then you had YYZ. Out of those four songs that were on the radio, it's like YYZ the instrumental, which is the airport letters for I believe Toronto, if
Yes.
I'm not mistaken. And then the rest of the album, Witch Hunt, and the songs that are not played on the radio, to me, in the camera's eye or whatever, those are YYZ, the Witch Hunt, and then the last song or two that are on Moving Pictures is the best material
Mm-hmm.
on that album.
Yeah.
Although people will, because you've heard it on the radio so many times that you literally never
Yeah.
want to hear it again. It's like Led
I.
Zeppelin. They play Kashmir and that
Yep.
1,000 times
Yeah.
to the point where it's if the song is even played, it's stuck in your head. It's that kind of thing. This album, if it wasn't radio friendly, it does deserve the ratings it does have
Yeah.
on Prog Archive. It's still a good album, but for me, the reason why it's this low is because it's radio friendly. And
Yeah.
the fact I've heard these songs so many times, it kind of robs the essential of where this album could be ranked a couple spots higher.
Right.
And I feel YYZ in the second half of the album were not played on the radio, and that is the best stuff on the album for me. Like I said,
Yeah.
this is
Mm-hmm.
one of those albums where I had to explain my reasons why. People may hate this video because I did.
It's the controversy.
But
I think it'll work.
yeah, the controversy is here, and there's more controversy to come, people. So this is where I say it starts going downhill for
Yep.
my list. It's
Same here.
fair warning. Zoltan knows what's coming.
My number 15 is Clockwork Angels. I do think that the production is very good. I don't know the lyrics, and I didn't know that this was supposed to be a big stage production. That is interesting, and if that's the case, it probably would have been better for me as well. Again, I think the biggest reason why this album is probably my favorite of the bottom 5 that I have listed out is mostly because of the fact that it does have a few of the songs that you do get a little bit of classic Rush here and there. It's again kind of in that whole sense of it's the modern Rush sound from the 90s, and they do bring back a little bit of that classic Rush sound, which is great and is so nice, but I don't think they did it enough. And I think if they actually stuck with doing a little bit more of the classic Rush sound, which they did, they had pieces on this album that sounded like 70s, early 80s Rush. But they don't stick with it, and I think that it just diminishes the good stuff on this album a little bit, so I'm going to put it at number 15. Now we're moving out from the bottom 5. We're going into the higher rated albums. Number 14, Dad, what is it?
I have Test for Echo, pretty much for the same reasons that you had it lower in the list as well. I mean,
Yeah,
it is a lot like it's like a better version of Counterparts.
yeah.
Maybe it's a better version of that album, but it's
Yeah.
kind of in the same direction where just trying to be heavy for the sake of being heavy.
Yeah.
And say, hey, we can be heavy too.
Yeah.
But I think some of the songs, like I guess it's Driven, maybe.
Yeah.
Is it Driven that's on there?
I think so.
I like a lot. I don't know.
It's good too. Yeah.
Yeah. I think some of the lyrics are very clever, so I really like it that way. So I rated it higher. So yeah, I'm comfortable with that 14 Test for Echo.
John, you're number 14.
I will agree. Test for Echo is my 14th place. And a lot of people not really a big fan of this album. For me, and my personality for Rush is going to be a lot different than most people's. And my list going forward, I will explain why.
Yeah.
Test for Echo just could probably be a little bit higher, but since there's 19 albums, and there's some I like more than others. I love Test for Echo. I'm not really a big fan of the album. I do prefer Counterparts, which is a little better than Test for Echo. There are its moments. It's heavy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit modern, but it's not as heavy as the Clockwork Angels and stuff like that. It
Right.
does have its merits, but it is, like I said, I will agree with your dad. It's the reason why it's at 14. Um, wish it had maybe a little more keyboard. If it did have keyboards, I don't remember. I played it recently, like a couple weeks ago, but we're doing the worst to best and to remember all that material.
Mm-hmm.
I've always loved the keyboard synth sound that was in Rush when you did hear it. So
Mm-hmm.
knowing on that note, you'll see probably where my list is going forward after this. But yeah, 14 Test for Echo.
My number 14 was Power Windows, and I do think that this overall has some very nice production. It sounds very much like the albums that are coming out at that exact same time, like Grace Under Pressure and Hold Your Fire. But I do think that the albums Grace Under Pressure and Hold Your Fire, notably, did do this sound a little better. I think it's help me out here, Dad. Is it the song Marathon? That one's great. I enjoy that one a lot. I also I enjoyed help me out here, the Manhattan Project. That one's good too.
Uh,
Some good
that's probably
songs
my
on
two.
here. Just overall, I think that they did this a little bit better later on. If I'm not mistaken, hold on, just to be safe. Was it Marathon? It is Marathon, yes. Territories too. Very good song too.
Yeah, there's
Um
only like one or two songs on there I like, and that Marathon's one of them.
yeah, Marathon. The Manhattan Project. Very Neil Peart lyrics on those songs specifically. Good stuff. Number 13, Dad.
I have to go back many years back to 1977 when my neighbor, his name was Bill, and he was a drummer,
Yeah.
and well, he still is, I imagine. Uh, but when I was that age, I guess he was a year older than me, so I guess I would have been 12 then. And I didn't know anything about this band, but he had a Rush, the logo from the first album on the back
Yeah.
of his jean jacket. And so I would usually meet up with him coming back from school. So eventually I did get around to saying, what is that on the back of your jacket? What
Yeah.
does it mean? And he said, this is a band. And so he introduced me to Rush, and I probably went to his house, which was just 5 or 6 houses down from mine, and went into his room and listened to a little bit and thought it was okay. And so I went and bought uh, a triple album back then, triple vinyl,
Mm-hmm.
which was called Rush Archives. Nowadays you might call it a box set, but back then it was a triple album.
Mm-hmm.
And what that Archives was the first 3 albums just in a triple box set.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I became a Rush fan, listening through Archives, which was the first 3 albums. And so for what number are we at? So 13?
13.
Yeah, so for 13, I have Caressive Steel, which I would say at the time, listening through all those albums, Caressive Steel easily became my favorite of those first three albums.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly got the proggy things that they did, the beginnings of what they did on 2112 and Hemispheres. That's where they developed it, and they were definitely developing their own sound. And
Mm-hmm.
when you listen to what they did then, they were really going out on a limb, right? I
Yep.
mean, they were going to lose their recording contract and go back to flipping burgers or whatever it was that they were doing. I guess Neil Peart was working in his father's uh what was it? Was he selling trucks or tractors or something? Farm equipment, I think, right? His dad had a farm equipment
Mm-hmm.
business.
Mm-hmm.
So he was going to have to go back and be a salesman in his dad's farm equipment. And the other guys probably had no other direction in life, but they took a chance to do this. You know, obviously they were inspired by listening to Yes and Genesis and King Crimson, and they wanted to go move in a more prog rock direction from their sort of Led Zeppelin-y blues rock direction. And
Mm-hmm.
they took a chance, and Chorus of Steel is actually it's a it's an interesting listen. It doesn't sound a lot like other Rush albums, but for their development and how they ended up sounding later, it's a very important step, and it still holds its own. It's got some good stuff on it, and
Mm-hmm.
I still enjoy that album. So
Yeah.
yeah, 13 Caress of Steel.
John, you're 13.
Maybe the counterpart, which is one above Test for Echo.
Mm-hmm.
I love counterparts a little bit more than Test for Echo.
Mm-hmm.
The lyrics are very good
Mm-hmm.
on some of the songs. Um, it's not the best Rush album, but for me, it's one of the best 90, like mid 90s, albums by
Mm-hmm.
Rush out of the 90s era. It's probably my second favorite between the first of the three 90s eras. So
Yep.
everyone knows what. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
Test for Echo, not as good. This one being a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, there's a couple. I don't even remember any song titles. You definitely know when we're near the bottom of the list here.
Yeah. Um.
Um, I feel like there's an album that's better than this lyrically. Like I'm the type of person who loves Neil Peart's craftsmanship on the drums
Mm-hmm.
and his lyrics. Where this one, the lyrics are kind of good, but the music just doesn't have enough
I
But
get you.
it's better than Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little too borderline metal,
Mm-hmm.
whereas Clockwork is too modern alternative. Where this one is in Test for Echo, we're trying to be kind of in between that Dream Theater sound, like the first
Yeah.
two albums that you were mentioning earlier.
Yep.
So they're not Dream Theater. I'm just saying everyone was trying to
No.
go into that neo metal sound, whatever you call it,
Yeah.
hard rock.
Yeah. My number 13 is Vapor Trails, and I think that this is definitely the album where their heaviest, more guitar oriented, like very of that same just idea of just do extraordinary guitars. I think that this is the album where they did it best. Neil was extraordinarily creative on this album, especially at the start of the album. Very nice way to open with fantastic creativity from Neil. I love how he opens the album. I also love that this album is extraordinarily focused on Neil's life and his unfortunate passing of his wife and daughter. But it is very nice. It's a very good concept, and I also love the fact that they did this album. I think it's a very it was a necessary release from the band, I think. Letting Neil do a project specifically around that concept is great, and I love that. So, I'm going to leave it at number 13, number 12, Dad.
Sometimes these the older albums are hard to compare to anything past Moving Pictures. They just sound so different, and it doesn't even matter if they're remastered.
Mm-hmm.
Just the way they approach the music and stuff, it's very difficult to even compare.
Mm-hmm.
So I sort of got a little bit lost into where to put some of these.
Yep.
So my number 12 is 2112. I mean, it's still a good album, but
Mm.
it does sound very dated now, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't hold up against even some of the 80s Rush. It just doesn't hold up as well. You know, so the concept is great. The whole idea is great, but you know, it suffers from being whatever 1977 or whatever,
Yeah,
1976, whatever it is.
I getcha.
But
John,
it's still good. So
yeah.
number 12, 2112.
Yours, John?
Number 12, I agree, is 2112. Also agree with your dad. Funny how no, we didn't do this for remaining 2112 12th place. Okay, there's
Yeah.
reasons why this one I don't really like that much. It's in 12th place. The reason why I don't like 2112, why it's not as high as it should be, is the epic is the core piece of the album.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best. This could have been an EP. If it was just an EP and this song alone, it'd probably be higher on the list.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the album songs, Passage, Train to Bangkok. Um, there's one song on here that is like a guitar piece. I don't remember if it's
Mm-hmm.
instrumental. It's a little short piece, a little mellow. That one's good. But to me, when this album was made, they fought the label because they wanted to do this 20-minute epic. And
Yeah.
somehow they cheesed the label, kind of lied to them. That way they could have some creative freedom
Mm-hmm.
on this album. And there's why the rest of the songs sound like the first two albums with that kind of sound.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to focus on the epic. I done some research on this album, and the rest of the album, they kind of like did a settlement where it's commercial and this epic being the core piece, but they kind of had to sneak it by the label and kind of lie to them so they're able to have that creative freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So this out, like I said, if this album would have been just the 20+ minute song, they would have made it a little bit longer than the 21. This song alone, this easily, if it was just a song alone, it'd be easily top 5, maybe top 7 for me. But it's not. The rest of the songs just it feels like the first two albums. It just
Right. My number 12 is Roll the Bones, and I do very much enjoy this album.
Yes.
I think that this album has a lot of really good songwriting, very classy Rush sounds. Despite the more, again, I think that out of all the albums that Rush has ever produced, this might be the worst offender of them losing their sense of identity. For example, there's a little bit of funk rock on this album, which is fine. I just don't think it fully makes sense. And another big thing that just completely doesn't feel right, especially for Rush, is the fact that they did rap. Does not make any sense for me whatsoever. As cool as it is and the lyrical concept of it, it just doesn't
It's
make
kind of cool.
sense. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make, but especially for the history of these guys growing up as Zeppelin fans, it sounds like, just by listening to the debut and Fly By Night, them doing rap rock just does not make a single lick of sense. It just makes me think that because there were guys like Eminem and Tupac and Notorious Big, they were like, oh, well, if those guys are selling records, then why not we add a little bit of rap, because we want to sell to that same modern audience, which is fine, but you're forcing it into your own music, and I don't think it works, as cool as it is. So because of the fact that they really lost a sense of identity on this one, I'm going to put it at 12. Number 11. Dad.
Okay, so we're just outside of the top 10, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so number 11. So it's that's a place where when you're making a list like this, you really think, okay, now I'm saying this album is not in the top 10, right?
Mm.
So my number 11 is Hold Your Fire. I think that this is just a sort of a watered down version of Power Windows, which obviously, since I haven't said it yet, is higher on my list,
Mm.
right? It sounds a lot like Power Windows, just not as good. And here the at the time, which of course I bought this album when it came out, I think the inclusion of the female singer from some trendy pop band at the time, and I don't know what the band was, it seemed a little bit gratuitous. In other words, the same argument you're making for the rapping and Roll the Bones could have been made about this woman singing in what is the song? Time Stands Still, I guess.
Yeah.
And I don't think it really works. It doesn't really. It's really outside of their style, and they didn't need to do that. The harmony could have been done by if it's just that Time Stands Still. That Getty could have done that harmony himself. He didn't need to have another vocalist in there, and he didn't need to pick somebody from a trendy pop band to do it. So yeah, I would say that obviously at number 11, I don't think it's a bad album. I mean, I don't really think any of the Rush albums are bad. So
Mm.
it's an okay album, but overall, it just sounds like a a watered down version of Hold Your Fire. I mean, sorry, of Power Windows.
Yeah.
So it's number 11 for me. It doesn't make the top 10.
All right, John, you're number 11.
My number 11. Oh boy. Cigarettes, be snakes and arrows. It's the reason why this one's high. This is a very good album, from start to finish. Every song, the lyrics are spot on. I really connect with this album.
Mm.
It could probably been easily within the top 5 if I wanted it to be, because it's within that kind of the goodness of, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
I love Neil Peart's lyrics, but like I
Yep.
said, there's other albums. It's 11. Far Cry is very good. Working Them Angels. All Hope. I think there's a song called something about Hope on here.
Yep.
There's a bunch of songs. The Melodic Narcissism one, if I'm not mistaken, that's an instrumental track. The way this album flows is just very good. And Neil Peart, at the time, this was, if I'm not mistaken, was written after Vapor Trails.
Yeah.
So in the 2000s, Neil Peart was lost his family, all that
Yep.
stuff. He's going through a lot of turmoil. He wrote a book, wrote a lot of stuff. Through all those tragedies, I feel Neil really, really is his lyric constructive and how he composed the songs were just brought to life.
Mm-hmm.
There in the 2000 eras of the Rush, Neil wrote some of the best stuff. And this is probably, in my honest opinion, the second best album that has Neil Peart's lyrics. They're that good.
Mm.
And all the songs on here, the lyrics are very catchy.
Yep.
It's a shame it didn't make the top 10, but it almost did.
Mm-hmm.
Very good album. A lot of people will disagree. This is not a good album. We all have our different likes and opinions, but for me, I'm a lyrics guy. I'm a lyrics guy.
So
why?
My number 11 is just like Dad, Hold Your Fire. I do actually prefer Hold Your Fire over Power Windows, and I do think that generally, I think that they definitely. This sounds just like Rush from start to finish. It just sounds like a Rush album. It's very just 80s Rush. Yeah, you do have the female pop vocalist coming in for one song. It's a chorus. It's not terrible. I'm not upset by it. It's the rest of the album definitely just sounds like the synth oriented Rush that you get at that exact same era. So for me it's basically just Power Windows but just a slight bit better. Number 10, Dad.
You mean not as good, right?
Go on.
Number 10. Okay, so the top 10.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
We're getting in the big boys.
Building on what John said, my number 10 is Snakes and Arrows. I was really, when we started doing our research for these reviews, I was very unfamiliar with this album, but when I put it on, I was like, wow, this is really quite good. It still has that 90s sound where it's a little bit more guitar oriented, but it's, I don't know, songwriting is fantastic.
Yep.
I haven't had as much chance, I guess maybe as John, to delve into exactly what's going on with the lyrics.
Yeah.
But, you know, I first have to like the songs and then I'll dig in and see what they're really all about. But I think this was really, I don't know what year this is. Is it late 90s or is it
2007.
early?
2007
2007.
or 2017. I don't remember.
No, 2007.
2007.
So
Okay.
is this right before Clockwork Angels?
This is 5 years before.
Okay. Yeah, this one's, I don't know, from listening to it in the last few weeks, it's just really, really, really good.
Yeah.
It is.
Can't say enough about it. It could even be higher if I let 6 more months go by.
Yep. John, your
Right.
number 10?
My number 10. Here is where everything starts to go downhill or uphill.
Go ahead.
But number 10, yeah. Hopefully this gets posted in the Rush Forum because it might shake heads. Not number 10, but where this is going.
Okay.
This is not going to be a meme. This is actually dead serious. Where everything goes from here. Number 10 is everyone's hoping it's okay. One of the 80s albums, right? Yo, it is an 80s album. Signals.
Yeah.
My number 10.
Okay.
I love subdivisions on this. I love most of the album. It could even be higher, but there's so many other out. Like I said, this is one of those bands pigeonholing their albums between the top. Most of them are good, not all of them are.
Yeah.
My brother's favorite Rush album would be this, because of the subdivision song. That's my brother. Give a shout out to him. This is his favorite, but it's top 10. Signals. It's very good. I feel there's a couple albums that are maybe a little bit higher.
Yeah.
As far as ratings.
Yep.
The 80s Rush album, but it's not bad. It's definitely better than Moving Pictures, as you can see.
Yeah.
For me. So that's number 10, Signals.
My number 10 is Grace Under Pressure, released in 84. I think that this album has a lot of great production. I do think that, for the most part, it has some great songs. I think After Images is fantastic. Absolutely wonderful. I think... I don't love the fact that I'll get to it when we get to that specific album, but they followed a little bit more of a reggae style, and they kind of tried to do a little bit of the ska sound because the Police were very big at that time, and a little bit more of identity issues. They definitely did try to add in a little bit more of that ska sound that the Police were doing, which, again, I don't think they were doing a bad job. I just think that it's a little out of place, and I think that for them, it's just trying to force a genre of music that maybe you shouldn't be trying to put into your style. It's good. I just think that there are better. Number 9, Dad.
At number 9, I had Grace Under Pressure.
Yep.
In general, I like the 80s sound of Rush, following from the moving pictures type sound and incorporating some of this Police influence and whatever new wave influence. I kind of like that. I just think it's a solid album from beginning to end.
Yep.
And I like the idea that some of these albums, they're instead of having concept pieces, the whole album is a concept album. And lyrically you join songs together, not because they're in a sequential order of events as in linear time, but that they're just related songs about the same topic. And that
Right.
kind of idea of doing concept albums where all the songs are lyrically related about a topic, and the topic is expressed in the name of the album, is kind of a very interesting lyrical way. And as you know well, Zoltan, that Neil Peart is pretty much my favorite lyricist ever.
Yep.
And when writing lyrics for our band, Zolly,
Mm-hmm.
I use Neil Peart as an inspiration for
Yeah.
how you go about writing very clever prog rock lyrics.
Yep.
He's the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is it's just I think it's just a absolutely fantastic album. And so that's me, number 9, Grace Under Pressure.
Number 9, John.
Yeah. Okay, my number 9 would be Roll the Bones.
Okay.
It's up there. This album is it's not bad. It is very good. And it comes right after Presto. I feel that this album kind of was trying to keep the essence of Presto, and then they have the Roll the Bones with that rap. That song on here, just Roll the Bones, is like that click. It's gonna click. Is it just you either like that song or you don't.
Mm.
Bravado, second song on here, very
Great song.
very good song. Where's My Thing? I love that one a
Me
lot.
too. Great
But
one.
my favorite, it's like the ballad "Ghost of a Chance." That that song is very emotional, lyric
Mm.
wise. It's a ballad. It's got those synths, and it can resonate with personality based on I just love the lyrics for "Ghost of a Chance." I think it's one of
Yeah.
Neil's like strongest lyrics for, in my honest opinion, a Rush ballad. I would, yeah, to me, I would call it a ballad. It's ballady,
Yeah.
very mellow. It's very constructive. Um, Very good. So
Mm-hmm.
number 9, Roll the Bones.
My number 9 is Signals, released in 82. The album directly after Moving Pictures, and you can definitely tell that, yeah, they were moving in a more keyboard oriented direction, and this is probably the album where they have the most keyboards. Just listening to this album front to back, I feel like, I mean, just Subdivisions is probably one of their most keyboard heavy written songs they've ever written in their entire discography. Plus Camera Eye too, but they wrote 2 of their most keyboard oriented songs within a year of each other. So this one, I think the production is very well done. The songwriting is good. I think and the cover is kind of cool too. Not nothing. Rush isn't exactly known for having the most beautiful album covers, but this one's okay. Let's move on to number 8. Dead.
At number 8, I had Signals
Mm-hmm.
for pretty much the same arguments that you've just made.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is very much of a follow-up to the Moving Pictures style.
Yep.
And Moving Pictures is a classic.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that that style suited them at the time, and it works very well.
Yeah.
And the keyboards worked for me.
Yeah.
So, number 8 for me, Signals.
John, you're number 8.
Um, my number 8 would be Permanent Ways. Why is this higher ranking than Moving Pictures? Well, there's 2 songs on here that were on the radio, where this Moving Pictures had about three or four off that album that were off the album that were on the radio.
Yeah.
Don't like the first 2 songs off of Permanent Ways. Free Will's okay. The Spirit of the Radio, okay. Jacob's Ladder. That is where this album. Killer song, different strings, beautiful ballad. The Entre Nous, not bad. Natural Science between Jacob's Ladder and the final song on that album. This is just glorious. It's very good. Probably,
Yeah.
in my opinion, is one of the strongest out of the what people call the holy trilogy. You had the 80s Rush, where you had Moving Pictures, Permanent Ways, and then Signals. A lot of people consider that a 5-star album too. But out of those three, this is probably my favorite of the what they call the Holy Rush Trinity. Permanent Waves, 8.
My number 8 is Presto, actually. And I very much enjoy this album. This one's fantastic. I think that this has some of the great Rush songs on here. You have songs like Holy Moses. You have songs like Don't Tell, which I think is fantastic. The Past, Chain Lightning, Presto, Superconductor is really really cool too. Very very pop-esque, but very catchy songs on Presto. I was very impressed by Presto when I listened to it, because you have a lot of very catchy songs like Show Don't Tell and Superconductor. Very very catchy songs on this record, and I think that this actually does go back into just the song or oriented ideology that Moving Pictures and Signals has. I think it just goes back to that. It's very well done. It's not very heavy either. Very interesting. Very, very good. Presto is extremely underrated. We're going to go on to number 7.
At number 7, I have Power Windows. I really think this album really, really works. I mean, Big Money is just, it's kind of like a blow you away type song. And all the concepts of power, if you read the lyrics, like, it's every song is about power, whether it's the power of money or the power of a nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
It's all about power and how power changes life on this planet. And I mean, I think it's a really well written Rush album. The lyrics are fantastic. I think the production is just crazy good, and lots of keyboards, which is great.
Yep.
And I don't know, I love this one. So 7 Power Windows.
Number 7, John.
Here we go. Everyone has their own opinions on worst to best.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Anyhow, so number 7, mine is Farewell to Kings. The title song's not bad. Xanadu or Xanadu, how you pronounce it. I don't know. I think that's based on some famous Aztec culture. Some kind of
No.
what are they called?
Mongols.
Yeah, the Mongol invasion.
It's about Marco Polo.
Kubla Khan.
Oh, okay.
Marco Polo and his visiting the Mongolian Empire in whatever that is. I don't know when he visited that.
I thought it was based on
1105 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Based on those forbidding societies. You had the Mayans, and they went underground, and Atlantis, and they all disappeared. Yeah. I think it's kind of something based on that, like a holy city that's gone lost. It's what your dad said. Good song, closer to the heart, radio friendly, not bad, not a bad ballad. I prefer Cinderella Man a little bit better than Closer to Your Heart. Then you have Cygnus X1, which is part 1 of the Cygnus duo. I prefer part 2 way better than Cygnus X1, but it is a good song. Mm-hmm. This is like an in-between in the middle song, not song, but album. Some of the songs are good, some of them not so good, but there is still meat on these songs compared to the first 3 Rush 70s album. Where even though there's some of the songs are not as strong, this is now you can listen to all the way through and still enjoy. Right. But it's not like top 5. But it's still good.
My number 7, and here we go. Rush fans are gonna cry. My number 7 is Moving Pictures, and I would say that for me, Rush is probably the band that suffers the most from their most praised album is the one that I think is the most overrated. And actually, I've recently learned that Pink Floyd might not even be the second worst offender. It might be Genesis. So, knowing that Moving Pictures is still, as I would say, my number 7 compared to everyone's number 1, which I would put at my number 5 for Genesis, it's a little bit interesting. Moving Pictures being at number 7 is a little bit more of, because of the fact that it is so overplayed, like John said. You have Tom Sawyer, Limelight, and YYZ, which were ridiculously played here in Canada and are still played all over the radio all the time. These are the staple songs. I'm not the giant fan of Vital Signs myself, and I do like Witch Hunt. It's fine, not brilliant, and I think Camera Eye and Red Barchetta are good. It's just a matter of, it's more just a matter of. I think Moving Pictures is definitely good, but I think that they definitely did better. Dad, number 6.
At number 6, I have Presto. Again, the idea of having an album where the concept is all of the songs feed into the concept.
Yeah.
Right? Which is this idea that, you snap your fingers and presto, life can change.
Yep.
Like pulling a rabbit out of a hat, which is where, you said you like show me, don't tell me. Well, at a trial, prosecutor.
Pull a rabbit out of the hat, right?
Pull a rabbit out of the hat.
Get into that. Okay, it's not an Emerson, Lake, and Palmer wordsmith, right? I'm sorry. Go on. Get it?
That's the idea, right? That maybe somebody can come up with some critical evidence at a trial and just pull a rabbit out of the hat and either send the guy to jail for 30 years or send him to death row or save his skin and he's out of jail and he's off onto the street. I think that it's an interesting concept about, I think a lot of these Rush concept albums in the 80s, they're just about life, the kind of life that happens to everybody. Your life can change on a dime.
Right.
You never know, right? You all of a sudden you get COVID or whatever. Mm-hmm. Whatever it is, I don't know.
Right.
I think that's, if you look at the concepts of it, and then, of course, they wrote great songs, but I mean, I do like the concept, right? Just pulling the rabbit out of the hat.
Yep.
It's a great concept, so it's number 6 for me, Presto.
Go on, John, number 6.
All right, number 6 is this is where everything starts to go, okay. People are going to start realizing downhill for most Rush. Number 6, Brace Under Pressure. Okay. I love this in Early Warning, Red Sector, 100100 SOS. I prefer the most people want to explain why. I love the synth era of Rush, probably the best. I'm a keyboard lover. 70s Rush is not bad, but I love keyboard. Keyboards is what makes Prog. So with that being number 6, you can probably predict where the top 5 are going.
All right.
With mine.
Let's move on to number 6 for me, and I'm going to say my number 6 is Snakes and Arrows, released in 2007. I absolutely adore this record after listening to it on repeat before doing this worst to best. I genuinely wanted to put this one in my top 5. I was going to kick out 2112 for this, but I didn't. Now people will know what at least one of my top 5 is. So, but I wanted to put Snakes and Arrows in the top 5 because I genuinely do think that this is so deserving of it. Far Cry is fantastic. You have so many, unbelievably many great songs on this record. You have Armor and Sword, Workin' Them Angels is fantastic. The Main Monkey Business, I think we saw that live, which was fantastic. Good News First, We Hold On, Bravest Faces, Faithless. All of these songs, the way the wind blows is great. I just think that this is a very, very solid Rush album from start to finish. Easily if on any other day, it could be my number 5. I just think that this album is absolutely stellar. It's probably the last brilliant Rush work. Number 5. Dad.
Number 5 for me is Moving Pictures. I understand, yours and John's criticism that some of the songs have been, I'm hearing now in soundtracks for movies and stuff, we're hearing Tom Sawyer, right?
Yep.
We're hearing that stuff. So, I mean, it's being used everywhere.
Yeah.
And you can't get away from it. So it's oversaturation. But if you just sit down and just listen to it as if though you never heard it before. You just go, "Wow, this is crazy good."
Yeah, okay.
And
I can see
you
that.
know, I think Camera's Eye and Witch Hunt are really the highlights of that album.
Mhm.
And Camera's Eye is all about New York City, and
Mhm.
I think that they captured the essence of being in Manhattan quite well.
Nice.
I've spent quite a lot of time in Manhattan myself, so have you, Zol,
Mhm.
and you really did capture it.
It did. It did. It definitely did. Overall, I think that's a very good record. John, you're number 5.
Top five for the
This is
beat.
where things get
Gonna
good.
go pretty fast with this. Mine's Hemispheres, second favorite album, the '70s era of Rush. Um, like I said, The Sickness, best song on the album. Then you had Trees and the rest of the stuff. Most people, this would probably be Rush fans in their top three. So it's top five for me. Hemispheres.
Yeah. All right. My number 5 is 2112. Now, this is I have it ranked higher than men, but both of you, which is funny. You both had it at number 12. I had it way higher at number 5, and I do think it is deserving of that. Mostly because of the fact that the epic in itself is basically the entirety of the album. I mean, and you do have a Passage to Bangkok, which I do think is great. Passage to Bangkok is great. I think Twilight Zone is fine. Lessons is fine. Tears is okay. Something for Nothing is good. I do think that there are a couple of songs on the last half of the album that I could skip. But generally speaking, if you have 6 songs and 4 of them are very good, I think it's worthy of the top 5. If you can just skip the 2 short tracks that you don't like, because I think 2112 and Something for Nothing, Twilight Zone, Passage to Bangkok are all at least top quality Rush songs, at least the epic, and the other ones that I mentioned are at least listenable in terms of a very enjoyable Rush listen. There's a couple of songs on here that I probably would skip myself, but generally speaking, other than the 2, I think that this is full of quality. Number 4, Deb.
At number 4, I have Hemispheres.
Yep.
It still holds up very well.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's sort of a classic Rush album that just can't be beaten down.
Yeah.
And I think the concept piece, which is based on a lot of Greek mythology, is very, very, very good in that Peart introduces his own Greek god, which is Cygnus, the god of balance.
Mm. Interesting.
So I'm not sure if you caught that. He says, I will, at one part of the lyrics, he says, I will name you Cygnus, the god of balance you shall be. I think that's the very end of the concept piece. That's the last lyrics. So I don't know if you realize that, you know, that's what he's doing in there. Now, the and I'll get a little bit later when I get to Farewell to Kings, but the song Cygnus X1 was inspired
By the
by the
discovery of a black hole.
discovery of a black hole, but the only way a black hole could be
Identified was using X-rays.
yes. And so Cygnus X1 was the first black hole discovered by scientists, by astronomers, because it was an X-ray emitting body in the constellation Cygnus.
Yep.
This was the first black hole discovered, and I think Neil was very
Intrigued by it,
intrigued by it. Yes, and then he decided he must have been reading a lot of Greek mythology because all through the song Hemispheres, there's all these Greek gods, Dionysus, and all this stuff. Anyway, it's a great album. So
Yeah. Number 4, John.
Best '70s album by Rush, and then we're in the top 4, and people are gonna wait. This album wasn't at the bottom. This album wasn't at the bottom. What are his top 3? Yeah, Rush fans, time to panic. This is not a meme. This is not trolling. Here's reasons why we're in the top 4. Caress of Steel is my number 4. is the best 70s album by Rush. You'll never hear Geddy Lee vocals sound the way they kind of do on this album again, to be honest. Yeah, Bastille Day. I think I'm going ball. I think I'm going ball. You know, sorry. Lakeside Park, the Necromancer, and the Fountain of Lanneth. The Fountain of Lanneth is the best Rush epic they've ever done. It beats 2112 in my opinion. It beats 6xx2. The way Geddy sings on this and the Fountain of the Lanneth, especially when it gets to the middle section, the back or near the end, the back about the back is wine. Oh my god! I mean, when people say they, Rush's been compared to Led Zeppelin in the day, when you listen to Fountain Lanneth, you swear to God it's
not related in the slightest.
Robert Plant, but it's not Robert Plant. It's like.
Right.
Geddy Lee on this album, in my honest opinion, is like his vocals are like probably some of the highest pitch vocals from a male you could hear on in the 70s, and without borderline sounding like they were a female singer. No insult to Geddy, it's just this is one of those albums where he's very young and he never sings like this again the way he's scented his vocals on this album. To me, it's the best 70s Rush album because of the way Geddy sings on this album. It's like one of a kind. The first three albums, he does sing high, but Geddy went full on in. The way he sings on this album is gorgeous from start to finish. So, number 4, Caress of Steel.
My number 4, I'm going to follow in the exact same vein, and I am going to say it is Caress of Steel as well. I love Caress of Steel a very large amount. I think that overall Bastille Day is very classic Rush. I think I'm Going Bald is kind of silly, but then again, I mean, it's a great song. I mean, it's
still catchy.
Yes, and I think that without even mentioning it, the Fountain of Lanneth is fantastic, and also the Necromancer is probably some of the most like it is. I don't think I've ever heard Rush do songs like those in their entire discography ever again after. Especially the opening of the Fountain. The Necromancer. It reminds me a lot more of like, No Quarter by Led Zeppelin, a little bit of Floyd. But it's so weirdly more unique than those two, and in the fact that it's unique from those. It separates itself. It adds a little bit more of a character to it, and I think that the production for the time, outstanding. The songwriting here, great. Dad, what were you saying?
I was just going to ask you about the palindrome. The palindrome that is Dodix and Narpets. What does that mean? Addicts and parents.
Addicts and parents. Thank you. That was it. Didacts and Narpets. Yeah. That's cool.
That's a good little bit of sense of humor and some.
Yeah, it is.
And some grammar for you guys who didn't do so well in grammar class.
Yeah. That's interesting. I do think that generally speaking, the two epics that are found here are some of the most iconic works Rush has ever done. Now let's move into the top 3. We're getting into the big kahunas. Let's go. Number 3, Dad.
Number 3, I had A Farewell to Kings. For me, it's still a classic Rush album, and it's hard to beat. But I won't go back into my Cygnus X1 explanation. You say that I do think it was mostly inspired by the discovery of the first black hole, but again, everything about this album is fantastic. It's just from beginning to end, and Xanadu, I do believe, is based on the travels of Marco Polo, as he went to visit the Mongolian Empire. Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty clear when you read the lyrics that that's what he's talking about. So I like that kind of historical kind of lyrics. I think it's great. So Farewell to Kings, number 3, right?
Yep. John, you're number 3.
hopefully I can get these last three before dinner's done. Everybody's to death, so I'm trying to do this fast. Presto, number three. My favorite of the late '80s Rush. Very, like I said, a lot of people think this album was a masterpiece. Some people that was like rated 5 stars for some people. Very good songs. Um, the synthesizers, all that good stuff. So three's Presto.
My number three is also following in Dad's vein, A Farewell to Kings. I do love Xanadu. I love Cinderella Man. I love Cygnus X1. Closer to the Heart is very nice. A Farewell to Kings, the title track, is also very good. I don't really have any big issues with this album, generally speaking, except for maybe the slight overplay of Closer to the Heart. But it's barely 3 minutes long, so I can't really hold it against it because I don't even. Does the studio version actually reach 3 minutes? I don't think it does.
I don't know.
I think it's only about 2.5 minutes long. Still good for 2.5 minutes long. It's great. But yeah, A Farewell to Kings is my number three. Dad, your number two.
My number two is Roll the Bones. The inclusion of the rap bit does not bother me as much as it seems to bother other people. I mean, yes, I get that it's kind of out of character, but if you look back since the early 80s, they were bringing in those police influences and other influences so they were obviously listening to popular radio and some of the stuff that they heard they liked, and it seemed to rub off on them, and they brought it into the music, so that's fine with me. I think one of the things I like about this album the most is actually the lyrical concept. I mean, the whole album is literally about my life's work as a statistician.
Yeah.
It's all about statistics.
Yep.
Roll the Bones is literally the idea of the earliest forms of ancient humans playing dice, games of chance.
Yeah.
Right? That they were rolling bones just like we roll dice now. And as you see on the album cover, they had dice all over it.
Yep.
So the whole album is all about how chance plays a very big role in your life. Take out forget about the rap stuff. The rest of it, the album is a very typical sort of Rush album of that era. I don't think it's very different sounding from other things that were at that time. So, I mean, it's a classically great Rush album, and the concept is so good that just can't let it go. Number two.
Okay.
Roll the Bones.
John, your number two?
I'll just probably say my top two because I'm most likely going to have to dip soon. Dinner's almost done, but number two would be Vapor Trail's remix version. Why is this high up in the list? There's a story for it. That was the first two albums. Number one's Hold Your Fire. These two albums are the first two albums that I ever bought from my record store. The only record store I've ever been in my life until I hit my mid-30s. The lyrics are very good. They're very special albums to me because they're the first two Rush albums I've ever heard in my life. Hold Your Fire is number one. It's very controversial. A lot of people are going to go, why is that your number one? There's all these other albums, and Hold Your Fire is number one. Yes. It is the first Rush album other than Vapor Trails. It was very hard to pick between these two. And the two first albums I bought with my own allowance and paycheck that I was earning from a record shop. Their sentimental value is why I could. Okay. That's all the record shop had was those two albums. It wasn't the remix version. It was Vapor Trails and Hold Your Fire. And these are my top two for those special reasons. And I also prefer the synths and the keyboards on the Rush albums. The 70s albums really didn't have a lot of keyboard. But these are why, this is the main reason why Hold Your Fire and Vapor Trails are in the top two spots, is because there is a connection to these albums. And very fond memory. If these weren't the first two albums I bought by Rush, it most likely my first place pick probably would have been Hemispheres or Presto, but it's just not. So
I gotcha.
With those, sorry, I tried to make it, but
That's
you
fair.
can edit it.
Don't worry about that. My number 2 is Permanent Waves. I think that generally speaking, the 2 hits that you do have on here are at the very start of the album. I don't particularly adore Spirit of the Radio, but Free Will and everything after that is very good. And just self-explanatory for me, especially once you talk about Natural Science and Jacob's Ladder. All right. Why not you talk about your number 1 album then, Dad?
My number 1 is Permanent Waves. This is the album where Geddy lowered his register purposefully, and Spirit of the Radio is a classic Rush song. Next song is Free Will. I think the song lyrically appeals to all of us who are not particularly religious, because the song is definitely about the idea that it's really an ode to atheism, right?
Yeah.
It's obvious that Neil Peart was very, very much an atheist, and he didn't want to hear it. It's the idea that you can choose whatever God you like, but if you don't like the gods, you can just choose free will to live your life how you want. And again, that the entire album has such great lyrical concepts about that life is about change all the time, which is why it says Permanent Waves. It could have been called Permanent Change, which reminds me of the early Yes stuff, right?
Yep.
Perpetual Change, right?
Yeah.
Didn't Yes have a song called Perpetual Change?
Yes, they did.
It's the same lyrical idea, right?
Yep.
That life is perpetual change. Right? Things happen, almost like Roll the Bones, right?
Yeah.
Why does it happen? Because it happens. I mean, he was getting on those lyrical concepts that were on Roll the Bones way back in Permanent Waves. So I don't know, Zoe.
All right.
It's classic. I love it. It's my favorite.
I think for my number 1 is just Hemispheres. I love this album a ton. I think Cygnus X1 Part 1 is book 2 is very good. I love the entirety of it. 20 minutes all front to back, fantastic. You got the trees in there. You got La Villa Stragiato. Like, you got so many great songs on this album. It's just classic from front to back, I think. And the fact that it doesn't even take a full 40 minutes to complete. It's not very time consuming, and it gets the point across from start to finish. I think it's the perfect Rush album. It's the quintessential Rush album. And I think that that's going to wrap it up for our lists. How do we feel, gentlemen?
Good. In case anyone forgets, Hold Your Fire's number 1 for me, and Vapor Trails. I didn't know if I would be able to get those 2 or White Yells, but so far we got done before White Yells.
Snakes and Arrows almost made my top 5, so I think we pissed off a good number of Rush fans today. So,
I'm pretty sure I pissed everyone off when I put Vapor Trails.
I think
I gave my reason. I could have,
You two are going to be the reasons I'm getting hate mail, because you put 2112 at 12th. Like, both of you did. You're
going to get hate mail. You're really going to get the hate mail from me putting Vapor Trails to probably Hold Your Fire. I don't think, like I said, it's not going to be a meme. This is not trolling. I said, I honestly felt if those weren't the first 2 albums I ever bought, those were the 2. I went in there and I wanted Rush albums, and he didn't have it. Brand new.
Yeah, I get you.
I was like, you have any Rush? He says, yes, but the product. And the record owner told me, you don't want to buy these. These are like the baddest albums you could get by this band. Why not this special order that I can get it in? I'm like, no. And I'm the person that always, when you're a teenager, nah, you don't listen to an adult. You're going to defy them and be arrogant and rebel. Like, no, he's probably going to be my favorite. So it's that mentality. I can watch. I'll probably end up, these should be my 2 favorite Rush albums of all time. Yeah. Jokingly about that matter when I was like 16 years old. Yeah. And I'm 40 now. And here we are later. You're still my 2 favorite.
Yeah. I think, generally speaking, this list was good. I think we had a good time here. Is everyone happy with their list, I think?
Yeah, yep. I'm very happy about my list.
Me too. I think that was... I think that was a very good little assignment for all of us. Rush is such an iconic band in Prague, and we might as well get it done and out of the way. So with that wraps it for this video. If you like this, please leave a like, share, and subscribe. Thank you all very much for watching. And as always, we will see you in the next video. Peace.